Hello and welcome to the Discover History YouTube channel, and as you can probably imagine, the battle has been raining all day. If you think back to the earlier videos, the fighting actually started, or the advance on Worcester started around about 6 AM, and we followed that battle all the way through the day. We've now come up to about 7 o'clock in the evening and the battle has collapsed in Worcester. So the Scots are fleeing for their lives. Some are putting up some resistance. We actually know Charles at one point led a counter-attack from outside the Guildhall up the High Street towards the cathedral, as there was many men now storming in through the Sidbury Gate. So it's all collapsed, it's all gone horribly wrong. And the interesting thing is, at around about this time, Charles, who had actually viewed the battle for the last time, was ordered by his aides and his officers to leave the city. It was now time for him to flee and save himself, leaving his army to be annihilated technically. So what actually happened is Charles came down Friar Street. It was said he rode down Friar Street, but then found an ox cart with one of the oxen dead blocking the way in the junction basically between Friar Street and New Street. It was said that Charles had to remove his armour and then he had to lie on the floor and squeeze underneath the ox cart and then get up the other side. And what you have to remember is the streets are not paved with gold in Worcester, they're not paved with tarmac like they are today. It would have been covered in sewage and also blood from the fighting. Now, we do know that Charles got up the other side, dusted himself off, and then ran down New Street to his personal billet, or possibly even the Royalist headquarters, really. And that was the building behind me here, and this is the King Charles. Now, most people know the King Charles is the pub just round the corner. What you have to remember is that is all one building. So the timber frame building you can see behind me, I don't know if you can just see where it says number 1 court is where the building starts. And it actually went all the way to this corner here and it stretched back to where the pub is. It was a large building in the opening out onto the corn market. Now, Charles went in there, and if you follow the story and you believe the stories, it was wrote down later on by Samuel Pepys, dictated by Charles. Charles grabbed a few personal belongings from inside his house, and it was said that he came out through the back door. He then had a horse waiting for him around about where I'm stood. He mounted that horse, and what you have to remember is the whole city is now full of Parliament soldiers, be it militia liberating their city, other Parliament militias from Essex and Cheshire, and you also have to remember the New Model Army, the might of the New Model Army are in here, and it's very difficult to control them now. We even know Cromwell did not come into Worcester because his army had their bloodlust up, and they were killing and dragging and looting all the way through the city that would go on into the early hours of the next morning. Now, Charles mounted his horse here, and the only gate not in enemy hands at that time of the day was St Martin's Gate. Now, St Martin's, just like the city ward, was partially levelled after the battle, and St Martin's Gate actually stood to my right here, where there is now a Georgian building, and Charles would have galloped out there with only a small number of people with him. We know that when he got over to Barben Brook, the bridge across Barben Brook, he was then joined by a cavalry escort from Leslie. The man that never moved through the whole battle has now decided to escort Charles out of the area and head north back towards Scotland. However, remember the earlier videos, there were Parliament troops at Bewdley and just outside the city centre, outside Foregate. There is no way he's going to be able to get north whatsoever. It was also at that point where Charles actually turned to Leslie and told him to go. In other words, Charles was going to escape from Worcester on his own. And he did, and that was probably better. 1 or 2 men escaping on a horse is probably better than an escort of 500 cavalry, basically. It was obvious he was there for the king. Charles had a £1,000 price put upon his head, and his legendary escape lasted for 6 whole weeks. However, the battle is not over. The fighting is now taking place in the streets of Worcester, and there are still small pockets of resistance holding out to the last man. But interestingly, Charles was now away, leaving his army to be annihilated here at Worcester. Anyway, on that note, stay tuned, more to come, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.